Good evening.
The Scottish Football Social Club is brought to you by McBookie.com. Take a lookie at McBookie today.
Was that a false start there? Little false start on a Monday night, eh? Why not? I thought this thing wasn't coming. I thought I'd just go. Always be ready, Michael. In life, always be ready. It is Monday night. It is the Scottish Football Social Club on Premier Sports in association with McBookie. Alan, Michael, here as always. Alan, Michael, very different pundits you might have noticed if you see them on TV or if you watch this show. Alan's open to anything, really. You know, when he gets things wrong, he holds his hands up. Michael, on the other hand, very stubborn in his punditry approach. If he gets things wrong, he never admits it, which is very different to VAR in Scotland, Michael. But they're getting things wrong all the time and they're holding their hands up all the time now. It's really good.
If you highlight where I got it wrong, Daryl, then I'll be quite happy, but I'm not sure you'd be able to show that.
Come on, just head to social media. I don't need to highlight it. Just head straight to socials. But Michael, what about VAR again? What about Willie? The hands have been held up. A few wrong decisions. As we told you, as just about everyone did on this show, it doesn't look good again, does it? The old VAR review?
No, it certainly doesn't. And, what was it? Probably about October, November time when things started to slide. And I thought, no, they deserve a bit of time to see if it's a trend or whether it was just a blip, because they started the season quite well. It's got, they deserve credit for that. But unfortunately, it was a trend. It wasn't a blip. And it's progressively been getting worse throughout the season. And I think it's like, regardless of whether it's a referee, a manager, or a player, they've hit a bit of bad form and they've allowed it to really affect them. Yeah. And the form has continued to slide, unfortunately.
I'm slightly tongue in cheek because, of course, we don't like to see the mistakes or the kind of admittance that comes after. No, you know, I've had my VAR rants, and when I at least saw that now there's a concession that they were getting things wrong, it makes it a little bit easier, doesn't it? Because at least they're understanding that. But it doesn't make it any easier for the clubs, Alan, clubs like Dundee United, who might think they've been, this has cost them a victory. Of you think Celtic at Hibs as well, and we could go on, St Mirren, other cases too. Some of it's been shocking, but it's not a good look. And how do they get it to change now, Alan? Because even some of those referees sitting in the VAR booth must be questioning themselves.
That's the $1 million question. How do you get it right? There has been too many mistakes, as you rightly say, and it's costing teams big points at a crucial stage of the season. So I don't know what it's going to take. Is it the standard has to get better? So how do you do that? How do you improve them? It's something they're going to have to look at moving forward, because you can't continuously make mistakes and things take so long, and then you just come out and you hold your hands up, but it's not good enough. Teams are losing points over it.
Get Daryl in charge. There we go.
That would be interesting, Michael. I would like to see that, because can you imagine if he made, God forbid, he made a mistake? Could you imagine that?
Listen, I've always said anyway down the years, I do wonder if a fully trained former player, former professional, should also be in the VAR booth. But look, it's a debate.
You think that's you?
No, I'm not saying me. I'd love to do it, but I'm saying maybe.
Can you imagine the pressure on them?
Maybe someone like Alan. You can't have a former Old Firm player, can you? That'd be total chaos. But I do wonder if there's a place for a former player in there, Michael, if they've gone through all the training, because sometimes you need football common sense as well, don't you, when you're making decisions?
Look, of course there's place for a former player. The thing is, if they've gone through all the training, then it's a perfect balance between understanding the game and then fully trained for the referee's job. But the thing is, there's a reason why it's not happened, because nobody's wanted to go down that route. It's how would you make that more enticing for a former player to do that? I don't know.
Listen, I think plenty would want it, but you'd have to accept from the refereeing side of things, the SFA as well, that it would be a possibility.
You think there's plenty of players would want that?
Yeah. I don't.
Yeah, no, I do. Listen, they might not have played at the top level if they've got plenty of money and they don't need the hassle, but there'll be plenty of other players out there.
Imagine the pressure you'd be putting on yourself, though, like coming out of football, just retired, and you think, right, what am I going to do? I fancy the VAR shift. Oh, man, the pressure that would come with.
You need a gig.
You'd be getting hammered week in, week out, no matter what you've done. That is a
maybe get a couple then. Maybe get a couple. I don't know. Anyway, I can't believe we've come out swinging at VAR again, right? After a Scottish Cup weekend, I can't believe it. I just had to mention it though because the errors.
You came out swinging.
He is on a mission to get rid of VAR, isn't he?
I am not sure what to change, but all I know is if it doesn't get better, in the end, it's the clubs that pay for it, and the clubs will not keep on putting their hand in their own pocket if they think it's not getting better. Something will give eventually as we move forward. Right, anyway, shall we move on? Because it was a really good weekend of cup football. There's another game tonight, which we'll talk about later. We can look ahead to the Europa League, Alan, later in the show as well. Let's start with Friday night then. Hearts against Dundee.
Good game.
Real good game.
After the Edinburgh Derby, Michael, really important for the Jambos to bounce back and put on a spirited display. And they did that, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. That was a good, particularly the second half, it was like a proper cup tie, in terms of sometimes when you've got two teams in the top flight and it becomes a bit of a run-of-the-mill game almost. But Friday night wasn't like that, especially the second half. Dundee were better. They were getting at Hearts. And then Hearts, replied in kind, and obviously the goals from Khartoum just out of the top draw.
Magnificent, that.
Sensational. You could stick 5, I think I said in commentary, Trevor Carson's in the goal, and he still wouldn't save it. It was an absolutely sensational strike. And then Dundee, credit to them, because they started the second half brightly and got themselves level. But for me, obviously, this goal comes not long after. It was the potential, talking about red card, no red card. That's what flipped it back in Hearts' favour. That's a lovely...
How's he even managed that, by the way?
Just flicked it. But
good vision.
So hard.
The power with the flick. Unbelievable. Right.
Yeah. Good vision, good imagination. Sander Khartoum looks like a player. And I guess, we have talked all along the Jambos this season and what they do with scouting players. And we've had Neil Critchley on who's told us how they identify players. It's only a couple of goals, but these are the type of talents potentially that Hearts are trying to unearth to bring to Scottish football. And it looks good, Alan, at the moment.
Yeah, I think he was relatively quiet in the first half, but he showed real quality. I think the first goal, the technique was brilliant. He nearly done it up the other end, as well, to be fair to him. But the second goal, see the turn, the spin, and then he's going away from the goal. So to use his left foot and flick it back the way into the side netting was incredible. See if you ever try and do something like that, to get power on it is so hard. But I think Dundee made it a game in the second half. I thought they'd done all right, but again, they just concede way too many goals. You think in the league was like something like 61 now and then another 3 on Friday. You just worry for them a little bit. But no, Hearts played well.
Right. It feels like...
Were your hands up there, Michael? Were you admitting something?
Because you just need to... No forgetting. Just calm the jets, Like, as Al said, with the greatest of respect, he didn't, and this is no criticism because he scores 2 great goals that effectively win the game. He didn't do a great deal more in the game. You can see that he's a very nice technical player. But the first time that I'd watched him is exactly what comes out, you say, technically very nice. And then you're looking and going, Brann Bergen was almost like the biggest club that he'd been at throughout his career. And I'm looking and going, he looks like he could play at a higher level than that. And watching him so far, my biggest concern would be you need to get him in the right area of the park to have the impact. And playing on the side of the diamond is not going to get the best out of him. Now, I know that might not be how Neil Critchley is going to line up, in the future. But at the moment, the game passed him by. He needs to, for me, be playing as a number 10 in behind the striker and not having to go running here, there and everywhere. You need to get him in that area where he can really go and affect the game, which he did for the second goal, but he needs to be in there most of the time. Otherwise, it looks like a player that would drift, to be honest.
Look, my Jets are calm, by the way. It's some of the Hearts fans are getting excited by the quality of the finishing. And if you do that every few weeks, then that's a big contribution on its own. But Michael, bringing in form players, I think it's something you mentioned, either when Neil Critchley was on or the week prior, you said you wouldn't want to see Hearts abandoning the development of good young Scottish players. I didn't bring it up at the time, right? But the following few weeks on social media, which apparently you don't read, there was a lot of Hearts fans saying, wait a minute, we had 7 Scottish-born developed players in the starting lineup the weekend that you mentioned that. So just for clarity, are you talking about because of the approach now at the football club and recruitment that you would worry that we get away from that? Or are you saying there's not enough now? Go on, defend yourself.
Well, it's not a case of defending myself. You've just explained it, Daryl. It's pertinently obvious what I'm talking about, that you don't want to drift away from that. And that's not unique to Hearts. That's any club, in Scotland, that you want to have a basis of the team and the nucleus of the squad that are not just homegrown, but from Scotland, that then it's easier to get that close-knit, team unity. And then when you bring in that foreign talent, they then integrate better. But me personally, I just feel, and Alan, I'm sure would, give you his view on it. When you've got people from everywhere, it becomes a little bit more difficult to get that team unity together.
That is definitely the case. I mean, I've been in squads myself, especially at Aston Villa, where there was a lot of boys from here, there, and everywhere, and it sometimes becomes difficult because a lot of the boys from certain countries will they go with each other and they don't really integrate as well as they possibly could have. So I think there's a nice mix and blend to be had. If the spine of your team, or a lot of it is Scottish, and then you can add a little bit of flair here and there that's going to kind of get you to the next level, then for me that's a perfect blend.
Obviously, that's exactly what the Turks were thinking when they recruited Michael over there. I think you bring in a little bit,
by the way,
didn't quite work out that way.
And by the way, Daryl, just to give you insight into that was a shambles as well, because it goes into exactly what I was talking about there. So you had a German-speaking manager, Thomas Doll, who had a Turkish translator at the side of him. He would instruct and pass out his commands in German. The Turkish translator would then translate into Turkish. You had a group of English-speaking guys, so there was myself, Mili Jedinak, who went to eventually Aston Villa with Hearts. He was there as well.
Big angry man.
There was a few other English-speaking guys. There was a couple other Australian boys. There was a Swedish guy that spoke, English. Then you had the Croats and the Serbians that were all having a translator with them. Then you had Portuguese and Spanish-speaking group, and then you had the Turkish group. So you had 4 or 5 groups all getting it translated into different languages. And
that could have been anything. That could have turned out anything.
And here's the beauty on it, right? Because I'm fluent in German, as you well know, I'm hearing what the manager has actually said. And when it's getting translated into Turkish, the Turkish translators translating into English, I'm saying to the boys, that's not what the manager just said. So that's my point. I have.
Are you fluent in German?
Both sides.
You're fluent in German?
Yes.
Not a chance. How have
yes,
we never?
I am.
Is this why you were doing the Swedish stuff with Jimmy Tillin earlier this season? There's a touch of that about you as well, is there? Come on, what can you give us in German? We had Derek Ray in the show and I didn't get any German. Give us anything.
I cannot believe we've never spoken about this. I'm just back from 2 Wochen in Österreich auf dem Schnee. This is sehr good.
So when did you?
Don't get him started, Daryl. Don't get him started, please.
When did you become fluent in German?
Ich habe an dem Schule gelernt.
Is this for real? Can't believe this. Here's me thinking all those years, Alan, I've been working with an uneducated man.
I'll give him that. He's very clever. So fair play.
Would you stop giving him
credit when credit's due. Do you know what I mean?
Fair enough. That's impressive. I can't believe that didn't come up, by the way, when Derek Ray was in the show. Anyway, there you go. Very impressive, Michael. Very impressive. Right, just briefly on Dundee. I think you've kind of both touched on this, but Al, there was a point in the game they got right back into it. Things are not going their way, as you know, in the league at the moment. They did show some fight. They need to take this on now, don't they? Because next weekend, the Dundee derbies on the horizon. It's huge.
It's absolutely massive. I think Adewumi had a shot, I think, just on the stroke of half-time, and he hits the post or the bar, one of the two. And it felt like it would have been a bit of a smash and grab going into half-time. That's what it felt. But fair play, the second half they came out and they showed fight and spirit, and they must have watched the Hibs game. They were trying to get it wide. Everything was they upped the tempo. Everything was a lot quicker, and they looked like they could maybe go on and do something. I think the second goal kind of takes the wind out their sails a little bit, and then they drop. But you think of where they're sitting at this moment in time. I just think the goals that they give away, the amount of them, and a lot of the time it's from like individual errors or mistakes or can't clear the box, those sort of things, and they get punished. So 3 points in front of St Johnstone. They've got a huge game at the weekend where I feel they have to win. They have to get something. They need to turn this form around now, because since they 6-0 defeats and stuff, it seems like they've just been going a little bit backwards, and they need to get on the front foot again.
Yeah. The big problem was, when we said it at the time, that Tony Docherty mentioned about how it was an anomaly, the 6-0 defeat of Hearts. But the problem was that it was that bad a defeat that it clearly has shaken them to their core. And then I think it was 3 days later, because I think the Celtic was a midweek game. I think it was a midweek. It wasn't even a week later. It was 3 days later, midweek, going to Celtic Park and getting smashed for 6 as well. That has obliterated the confidence, and all of a sudden you start getting on this death spiral almost, and it's so difficult to get out of it. So even though he would have looked at that Hearts game as an anomaly, it's had a lasting effect. There is no doubt about it.
Yeah, agreed. Right, let's move on then. Aberdeen against Queen's Park. No more magic from Queens this time round, Alan. Aberdeen dealt with them pretty well. In early stages of the game, watching on, it looked relatively even. As soon as the Dons got that first goal, Kevin Nisbet again.
Great
Nisbet,
goal.
Nisbet.
It's no Rabsy.
No. I've given him the Nisbet there. As soon as he scores, it felt like it was never in doubt. A great finish.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe for Queen's Park it was just a step too far. They had the giant killing against Rangers, but I think Aberdeen went out with a real strong team. Look at that, that was brilliant. Fair play to Dabba though. He gets up and he sorts himself out. Good movement to the back post. I thought Morris again was really good.
Yeah.
We know how dynamic he can be. He wants to take people on. I think it was 2 assists he got. But they just looked in control, really. I mean, Shinnie here, left foot, bang, good strike. Another goal. But I just thought in general, they just handled the whole situation well. They were professional, how they went about their business. This is what we're talking about. Do you have the pace just to go down the line, drive inside, and then can you pick somebody out? Yes, you can. Another goal. But for me, they just look very comfortable, and they'll be looking forward now to the next round. This is probably the only kind of disappointment for them. Rudden just gets in there and scores a kind of consolation. But I think over the piece, Aberdeen and Jimmy Tilleen will be very happy with the performance. Yeah,
they handled it well, didn't they, Michael, overall? And I think there's loads of talking points for the game. But Shayden Morris, as Al has rightly picked up on there, I think we've talked about this on the show as the season's gone on, and you both said, you weren't sure why didn't start more games for Aberdeen. There is a little bit of an inconsistency, but the talent is so clear to see, Michael. And if he can join those dots together, then he's such an important figure for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, he did start a few games after the start of the campaign where he was so bright coming off the bench. He did start a few games, but it was probably just not the same level of impact that he'd had coming off the bench. So he was in an unfortunate situation where he was probably having a greater effect on the game when he was coming off the bench. So, and then obviously Aberdeen were on a terrible run of form. They'd lost their way to a great extent. But the last few games that we've seen as well, they've stopped the rot, that's for sure. They're starting slowly to turn things around. But there were definitely, the Dundee United game that obviously Alan and I were at, it was a massive one for them to come back and get 2-2. But it wasn't as if it was a fluent, brilliant performance. And they were, to a great extent, pretty toothless in that final third. We did say, perhaps, the 2 goals for Kevin Nisbet would be able to give him that bit of confidence. And it looks like it might well be the case, because that was a great finish. But also, Shayden Morris, when he came on, he made a difference in that game. Yeah. And obviously the Queen's Park game there at the weekend on Saturday, he was influential as well. So it'll be interesting to see, moving forward, is he going to be starting more games for Jimmy Tilleen?
Yeah, Kevin Nisbet, there's even talk of a Scotland recall. I don't know if it's too early, Alan, if he needs a consistent run of form. Obviously, Scotland need options in that department. But he did an interview, I think you were there when he was speaking, talking about his confidence and how important these goals have been. And he does feel that his game's coming back. Good signs as well on a personal level for him.
Yeah, well, and Jimmy Tilleen spoke about it. He's working hard in training. He's doing extra. He's now seeing the goals return. And I think with that, it breeds confidence. Of course it does. Playing week in, week out, scoring, that's what he's there for. And he spoke about when he signed for Aberdeen that he wants to get himself back in the Scotland squad. So you're giving yourself the best opportunity when you're putting in performances and scoring. Of course, he has to be consistent. He has to do it week in, week out. And it was always, I think, going to take him time to get back to the levels. But if he can get there, there's no doubt in my mind that he should be in the Scotland squad. But it's just about being consistent now because, as you rightly put it, they need options up top.
Do you call on him now, Michael, or give him a little bit more time?
I think he needs more time, to be perfectly honest. And I tell you what, I would probably, I mean, even if he was going to get called up into the squad, realistically, he's not going to, I wouldn't imagine he was going to be, having much game time. So I actually think it's probably better for him, because he spoke about his fitness as well. And he was saying that he feels he's as fit as he has been since his time at Aberdeen. So he's had problems there, clearly. And I think a week of training and getting extra fitness would be more beneficial to him than going and training just as normal with the Scotland team and perhaps not really having much game time. I think having a wee programme over that international break would probably do him better than going away with the national team.
Yeah. Michael, thoughts on Ode Dabba?
Good finish, aye, after some good footwork, as Alan said.
Maybe it was meant just so he could lose his marker. You know what I mean? Ghost into the back post.
That is all filled.
I wouldn't be nailing my colours to the mast one way or the other just quite yet.
It's early days, isn't it?
Yes, it is early days. And I mean, he's got a few goals. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be sort of going one way or the other in regards to writing him off or sort of singing from the rooftops quite yet.
No, he is definitely in the inconsistent category at the moment, Alan. But obviously they saw something to sign him, and he's got a good record at international level, so maybe more goals are going to come. Just on Graham Shinnie, he started at left back in the game, his 600th career club appearance, putting a really good shift in the day as well. What a servant he's been to football and to Aberdeen as well, Alan.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anybody that plays that amount of games, the consistency, the levels that he gets to, we know he's the captain. I mean, you kind of have to take your hat off to him because it's not easy. It's not easy to get that kind of number. So fair play. And not only that, like there he is playing at left back as well. So I know he's played there before, but to come in and play to the same standards just shows you that he looks after himself, the character of him. He must train really hard as well. And you can tell that he's really liked within the squad. So I think that's an unbelievable achievement.
They've obviously got good genetics, Daryl, because his brother, who'll be involved later on the night, is he's playing at a fair age now as well.
Yeah, he's a class act, though, isn't he? He's a leader, Michael, and there's so many Aberdeen managers before who have talked about his leadership skills, and you need a guy like that in the dressing room, don't you?
Yes, yeah. Goes back to what we were just talking about. You need a core of the team that have that are understanding of the place, the club, and can actually perform. So yeah, Graham Shinnie well and truly falls into that category, and as do the likes of Nicky Devlin. I'm just surprised that I know there's been some chat about a bit of a niggling injury that he'd been carrying or whatever, but I'm surprised that how now I know Jensen's done all right since he's come in. I'm surprised at how much Devlin has been sort of pushed to the sides and not playing. And I think maybe somebody can correct me if I'm wrong here. I thought he'd signed a 2-year deal.
He did.
At Aberdeen, so he's out.
I think it was November when he got a Scotland call up. He signed an extension at that point.
So did he sign an extension? Mm-hmm. Yes. Right.
Yeah, from memory. Yeah.
Right. So but what I'm meaning was I thought originally he'd signed a 2-year deal at Aberdeen. I was just wondering whether he was out of contract at the end of the season.
No, extension was signed. I'm almost certain in November. 99% sure he signed, because I think
they paid a lot of money for Jensen as well.
They did.
Yeah, I know.
They did. But he must have been injured at the weekend, Michael. I know you're saying there's a talk of an injury, but he wasn't even in the squad. Devlin. You don't leave Nicky Devlin in the squad. No, you're right. You're talking about him getting back in the team.
Yeah, of course, but that's what I mean. That obviously he's been on the bench, he's not been playing, then he's out the squad, and that's what I'm saying. I've heard, that there is a bit of discussion about carrying a niggling injury or whatever, but I'm just surprised at his gone from, like a Graham Shinnie, a mainstay of the team, very important, to then being, not included. It's got to be.
And knowing his personality as well, if it was a minor injury and there's any way he could get on the pitch, he would be there. So maybe they're just trying to get him right. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see how that plays out.
The final point I was going to make was that if he's not going to be involved in Aberdeen, there would be a number of clubs that would be
loads
saying, we'd be quite interested in taking him.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Right, onwards to Celtic Park. Celtic 2, Hibs 0. Focusing on Celtic first of all, Michael. I mean, they were at it from the off. Weren't they, creating chances? And when they're like this, they are so tough to handle.
Yeah. I mean, it was no great surprise that it was very much in the same vein as when Aberdeen got a 2-2 draw against them in the league. No long after that, they absolutely demolished them in the semi-final of the Premier Sports Cup. So you got a sense that that's what Celtic were looking to do again. And credit to Hibs because they held in.
They
didn't offer a great deal in an attacking sense, but they limited Celtic to longer strikes. They didn't cut Hibs open as often, but they were certainly, full of tempo and desire to go and win the game.
Jordan Smith had to play really well.
He was good. He was good.
Back to that, but Alan, as I said, and maybe Michael's absolutely spot on there. When you've had a negative result against the team, you want to go and make a little statement, don't you? And it looked like right from the off. I know that was a chance.
That would have been
controversial.
Very, very interesting if that went in.
Yeah,
I mean, it's over 10 yards. They effectively go and take the shy beyond where Carter Vickers has jogged back to. So,
would you think that went in? What do you think would have happened there?
I don't know if VAR could get involved in it. That's the interesting thing.
Well, they could have, I'm sure, because it was a goal, but I'm not sure the absolute minutiae detail of a throw-in. But anyway, it's a good question. Probably just as well he didn't score because it would be more VAR chaos.
It would have been chaos. I mean, that's Maeda all over. Just he's so electric, never stops, and it was a crucial goal to score that just before half time because Hibs would have been eyeing up half time 0-0 and thinking, right, that's the first part of the job done. So
I mean, it should have really been a lot more, really. I mean, I think defensively, David Gray spoke about it. I thought they did look good, and even though there's been a lot of chances, I think Jordan Smith done really well in terms of keeping the ball out the net. I know they did score 2, but I think they did look all right. They just have to be more of a threat. And I know it's difficult. Like going to Celtic Park, it's not easy to go there and defend like you do and try and carry a threat at the same time. But Celtic, you could just tell they wanted it. They really wanted to go and score a number of goals. And when they're in that strong team, when they're really kind of flowing, it's very difficult to slow them down. So I think they deserved the victory, and Hibs, it's just one of them. It was always going to be difficult for them.
Yeah, a question, if you like, there about Maeda, who I think a few weeks ago, was it Stacey Devlin had sent a question in asking Player of the Year candidate, and we obviously spoke about that quite early. We all agreed he had to be, and all he's done since then, Michael, since we had that conversation, is keep on scoring and getting in the right places. He was fantastic in Europe well.
I've got a wee superlative there. Wunderbar.
This guy, honestly, I've had enough of it already.
Me too. He's so smug.
See Maeda, you cannot switch off.
No.
He's actually just, not that he would need you to switch off because he's so sharp off the mark and his movement's that good that it's always going to be difficult. But I mean, he's just went to the next level. I think with his finishing being so good now, it's actually taken him to the next level.
As a defender, Al, I'm assuming he's the kind of guy ahead of a game, right? Ahead of a game, you're having nightmares because you have to be right on it.
Yeah, well, we know when it comes to Rangers, he's giving people nightmares anyway. So, I mean, he's definitely that guy that before an Old Firm game, you'd be sitting going, I know I'm in for a tough task tomorrow. I need to be on point if I want to try and stop him. But even now that he can move and play inside and play as a number 9, and you've got Jota and Kuhn with the pace also, it just gives you a whole nother dynamic. So you just can't switch off, and his movement, everything is top quality. So look, it's going to be difficult to slow him down.
I thought a few weeks ago maybe the only Celtic player that might get kind of close in the kind of Player of the Year running would be Callum McGregor, because he's had some phenomenal goals this season. Again, the consistency is remarkable. But just the way Maeda's kicked on since then, Michael, he's the clear candidate, isn't he, to win the awards?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think anybody else will come close because he's timed his run of form perfectly, and it's just been it's been a very interesting rise in terms of the level and the standard of the quality that he's brought, because everybody recognised, we all saw it, we all could see it. It was staring us in the face in terms of his work ethic, his pace. But at times, it was lacking an end product. So, you'd get into great areas and he would balloon it over the bar. He
was a wee bit erratic, wasn't he?
Yeah. Whereas now, that doesn't happen. The end product is unbelievable. Soft touch, great, great footwork and finishing, left foot, right foot, head. I mean, he's developed into the complete striker or wide man. So he's added so much to his game, because obviously when he came to Celtic, there was chat that he played through the middle for Japan. Yeah. And at times you look at that and go, I'm not sure he's technically good enough to play through the middle. Whereas you see him now and you go, 100%, brilliant.
Yeah. He's got a bit of everything at the moment. Celtic obviously on course for a phenomenal end to the season. Big games to come quite clearly, but what a season it's looking for Brendan Rodgers and his team. Like, Al, don't worry, I'm not going to come to you on that. But I will come to you on Hibs, Alan, because they took 7,000 fans. They were noisy the whole day. You can tell the enthusiasm that continues to be around the club. It is a first defeat in 16 games. We've all said they hung in the contest maybe a couple of months ago, or maybe slightly further back than that. They'd have been blown away in the early stages of that game, but they hung in. The goalkeeper made good saves. Now it's just refocusing, because another team who've got a great opportunity to finish this season strongly and claim third place.
Yeah, well, what is it? Is it Kilmarnock away next?
I think so, yeah.
I think it is. Look, that'll be a difficult game, but I think they're in a good moment, even though they've been beat by Celtic. You rightly said that the run that they've been on has been quite incredible. They've went from strength to strength. And yeah, if you go back to like when we done the Dundee Hibs game, I mean, that was kind of rock bottom for them, what it felt like. Like that was, the manager was either going to leave or something was going to change, and it did. And like I said, they're looking so strong now. The momentum's with them. I feel they're good enough to finish like in third place.
Yeah,
but they do need to refocus. But the big thing for me is Cadden.
Yeah. You took the words out of my mouth. There was such a moment in the game, actually, because the contest still in the balance at that point, Michael, and it just felt, as I was watching on, losing him, not just on the day, the impact on the game, but moving forwards. I know you'd mentioned in commentary, it might be a bad one, it might be a tear or something. But if it is, and he's out for a while, then he's another really difficult player to replace, given what he does defensively, but going forwards.
That could derail and jeopardise them finishing third. It's that big a blow, I think. It really is dependent on how long he's out for, because he brings so much to the team, as you quite rightly said there. Defensively, he's a grafter. The amount of times he gets back in and fills round brilliantly. But I mean, equally, or probably more importantly, it's that threat going forward. And look, Christ, I go on about it enough in terms of hitting the byline, getting penetration in behind teams.
Loves that byline.
His ability to play good early balls and
half a yard, bang.
And here's the thing: the reason he doesn't have to get past and penetrate the team is because his delivery gets into those areas. He's not putting balls in where it's still in front of the defenders. He whips balls in, and the defenders are still having to turn and face their own goal. So it's not many people that are able to do that, and he does it consistently. I mean, his
deliveries against Hearts was outstanding. Yeah. And how do you replace that? See if he is out for a month. Like how do you replace it? Because not everything. A lot that's good comes from that side. Yeah. And I'm not taking it away from everybody else. Everybody else does their part. But I just think when they switch the ball over to him, for a fact the delivery is going to be good.
Yeah. They're a well-disciplined team right now. Let's see if they can obviously cope without him, and obviously get more news on the injury as well, probably ahead of that game against Kilmarnock. Jordan Smith in goal. I know I briefly mentioned it. Michael, he made mistakes. earlier this season. You obviously, pointed this out a few different times, saying that that's a department of the team they have to improve. I think there was talk recently, maybe just newspaper talk, about giving him a new contract. But whatever they've done,
it just signed one on Saturday, was it?
On Friday.
There you go. The contract's been signed, and it shows you what they must think of him internally in the club. But also the work, fair enough, the work that he's put in, Michael, and he's not allowed the mistakes to kind of derail his season. A lot of credit goes to the player.
Absolutely. I mean, look, he got an opportunity and almost threw it away in the first game, his opportunity against Aberdeen. But the credit to the manager, he stuck by him as well, and he's grown. He's grown in stature. I mean, he's never really had. well, it's not speculating. He has never had this run of games that he's got now is the longest run of games that he's had. Starting. So he's never been in this position before. I do still think that they will be looking to recruit a goalkeeper in the summer. I do. But what they've got now is that they've got somebody that they obviously feel comfortable and confident that they can trust if they want to, have him as the number one, or if he's going to be a number two and plays, many games if the number one that comes in gets injured or whatever. They've got somebody that they can genuinely feel that they can trust now. But I do, as I said, I do think they'll still look to recruit a goalkeeper in the summer.
There's a lot of talk about number one and number two in there. On that note, Al, let's just move. It's a bit of Austin Powers going on up there. Let's move on to tonight's cup tie. Al, Livy, St Johnstone. Who are you going for?
I'm going to go for Livingston, I think. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be a good game. Livingston at home, they've been in good form recently. I mean, I love listening to David Martindale when he's talking. I think it's brilliant. I just think St Johnstone, the moment they're in it, it's difficult, isn't it? So I just feel something about Livingston right now. I think they can get it done.
Simo Valakari ahead of this one been talking about the dark arts that he appreciates, by the way. He's been positive about the Livy dark arts. That's the kind of headline, though, that sometimes you just pin up in the dressing room board.
Yeah, absolutely.
They'll be... you can talk about it and say, oh, you appreciate it, but everybody knows what he's really saying. So from David Martindale's perspective and Livingston's perspective, that's the team talk taken care of.
Yeah.
Before you even take it into consideration, there's a semi-final at Hampden at stake here, and you're then talking about you're coming up against three of the top teams in the country. That you're
a lot of money at stake.
A lot of money, yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's a huge carrot for either side. It's just, look, St Johnstone they're making a fist of this league campaign. They're in the quarterfinals of the cup here. I just think Livy at home. I mean, I've seen them a few times, against some of the teams that run around them in the championship, against Falkirk and against Partick Thistle at home, and they've blown them away because they've been really at it, and aggressive and playing some good football as well. And I would imagine and expect that it's going to be something pretty similar tonight, where they are, wanting to really make a statement with their performance.
So who are you going for?
Well, I think it's fairly obvious, just like when Darryl was explaining about 7 homegrown talents, it explains itself.
It wasn't obvious to people on social media.
I just thought you were going round the houses a wee bit there. Do you know what I mean?
I'm not sure I was even asked for a prediction there, was I?
Right, so who do you think is going to win the night then, Michael?
2-1 für die Mannschaft in dem Nähe von Edinburgh.
Mineshaft.
All right. I don't know that much German, but I do know exactly what you meant with that one. Livy all day long is what that translated to. Okay, right, Alan. No Rangers to discuss this weekend domestically. You're probably quite pleased about that. However, what a performance out in Turkey. Remember we talked about Barry Ferguson, what he would try to come up with against Jose Mourinho, and even sort of putting your wits against one of the best managers. In fairness to Barry Ferguson, never mind the actual performance of the team, by the way, who were brilliant in the night, but he's since talked about the rest of his coaching staff weren't sure about going to a back three. He absolutely nailed it on the night, didn't he?
Absolutely. I think there was a lot of raised eyebrows when we seen the kind of lineup, thinking it kind of came from left field. But yeah, it worked a treat. I think defensively they looked strong, but not only that, they carried that threat. They the transitions were quick, and I think they had the players to be able to do that. So, I mean, to go over there to Fenerbahce and win 3-1 is quite incredible. I mean, there's still that Dessers goal, that first one that was offside. I'm not sure. I genuinely, honest to God, I think it's that tight. How can you even tell? I thought he actually made a decent run. The second offside one, yes, of course, but I just feel that.
Are the European refs against Rangers, Hutz? Is that what you're saying?
Probably, aye. Maybe Mourinho was said something, I don't know, but I just feel like to go over there and get that result was absolutely outstanding, and it's going to be interesting to see how he approaches this second game.
Yeah.
Will he go off the same template or will he change it?
What do you think?
Mourinho.
Yeah, go on now.
I was just saying, see Mourinho, like he looked at that game. See the last maybe half an hour, Rangers had some real good chances. He threw on every attacker. You would have thought it was the second leg with 20 minutes to go. The way Mourinho was attacking, I was like, what is this guy doing here? He's just all guns blazing. So I don't know. I'm sitting here thinking about it and going, the Rangers, do they revert back to their 4 or do they play the 5, try and hit them in the counter attack as well? Because look, if Fenerbahce get the first goal, I think he could get very nervous.
Yeah,
that's my big worry.
It's got a bit of a feel of that Borussia Dortmund game from 2022 in it.
Yeah.
I think similar chats were being had ahead of that match, and obviously Dortmund did a real good team, but if they were to score first, the nerves in the stadium might come. But the back three, and why change it though? Because it seems to suit some of the personnel. You know, Fenerbahce, unless they completely change, you're going to keep on throwing loads of balls into the box with Dzeko and En-Nesyri in there. Balogun was unbelievable. Suter, some of the last-ditch defending as well. Look, maybe there was a touch of fortune. You never want to see a player getting injured, but when Proper went off in the game and Balogun came on, it seemed to suit the back three as well.
Yeah.
So why change that setup, though?
Yeah. But see, for me, I think that was the only thing for me when I seen the starting lineup. I thought Balogun would play. I thought it would be Suter and Balogun all day long. So I think that's the best too. So the three done really well. I thought the cover from the wing backs was really good. So I can totally understand if they play that way. I wouldn't be a surprise because I thought they were excellent.
It also gets you the possibility with Czerny further up in a slightly more central role, which obviously worked in the game as well, working off someone like Dessers. Because I also thought
because he's a ball carrier.
Yes. Yeah.
He's a ball carrier. So if you get him into dangerous areas in the pitch, defensively you're sound, and you're allowing him to open his legs up and really go and attack and be a real threat. So Rangers will have opportunities to score. There's no doubt about it, because I think even the way Mourinho taking on Rangers in the first leg, he threw everything at them. So there's going to be chances for them. They're going to do it in the second leg. So it'll be interesting, but could this be a template for Rangers moving forward? You think of the big game they've got at the weekend also, going to Celtic Park. So
watching that game though, I mean, look, you were involved in it. Did it not just remind you of a Walter Smith performance in Europe? I'm looking at the setup and I'm thinking to myself, this just looks like Barry has leaned on his experiences under Walter Smith away from home.
Yeah. You know, but that's what we used to play 4-5-1, and you used to have a striker up top, whoever, Daniel Kuzan, whoever who had pace about him, could hold it up, could bring people in. I remember Walter Smith telling me, right, Alan, this is not the night to be flying forward. If it's on, you go forward. If it's not really on, you just sit in and defend. So it was like that, very much so. And it's knockout football. You're going away to a hostile environment against a decent team. Like, they are aging, don't get me wrong, there's still quality there. So I don't think that helped in the later stages when they kind of dropped off a wee bit and they couldn't really defend. But overall, I mean, what an unbelievable result. We need to go and finish it now.
Yeah, they do. But I mean, look, we said last week in terms of, thinking about what would the manager go with as his defensive setup, particularly.
Yes. And that was the big call.
And a back three, I don't think any of us, thought that or were talking about that as a possibility. So I think Barry Ferguson deserves, and his coaching team deserve a lot of credit because, they've come up with this game plan, and it's like anything. You can come up with a plan, but if it doesn't play out, then you're going to get crucified. So it takes a wee bit of, sort of
guts.
Yeah, guts and belief to make a call like that. And we were saying this in terms of whatever he goes with, he's really on the precipice here of either being vilified and absolutely lambasted or getting the credit. And he certainly got the credit. He deserved it. And Rangers really should have been more than 3-1 up. I'm with Al completely. I mean, they only showed that one replay very quickly of the offside. then you didn't really see it again. And it was like, so what? Where? What?
It was hard to see actually on that angle where they'd marked it as well on his kind of shoulder, just where you can score a goal a wee bit down. Look, it was close. You've got to assume it was offside if it's factually correct. At that level, they're usually pretty good, but who knows? It was marginal. It could have been more. But I think you're right on Barry Ferguson, Michael, because even maybe more pressure, because Philip Clement, the one thing he was doing really well this season was European performances and how you set a team up and how you get it right. So to even change what Clement had set up before, to go on your own altogether and to get that out of the team, Desser's probably his best game for Rangers. And the other big call, I think, Al, was leaving Iggeman on the bench. Arguably, with Raskin, maybe the other outstanding player in the Europa League campaign. So to leave him out and to get what they got out of Dessers, that was another massive call he got right.
Yeah, because I think when we're talking about the likes of Czerny or Diamandi or whatever in these wee kind of half spaces, what do they give you? They can carry the ball, they can run forward, but they work really, really hard and they'll get back in defensively and they'll be in their shape. I think Iggeman, yes, what he's done has been excellent so far as he went off the boil, maybe ever so slightly, but I just think you're looking for different attributes in an away knockout leg. And I think that's probably one of the big reasons why he was left out. But see, when we got the initial team, because I'm thinking, like Fergie said, how he was going to be making changes and blah, blah, blah. And then you seen like Yilmaz playing, Jefty playing. I was like, he's just copied off the back of what Clement done. Because remember, that's how he was playing with Ridvan up in front of Jefty, whatever. And then to change the whole formation and everything, I thought he got it absolutely spot on. So I can't wait to see what he does come Thursday. It's going to be a real interesting one.
Darryl, you spoke about this in terms of the home the game on Thursday, and it's another game. It throws up its own conundrums, but it'll be very interesting to see what he does, because there will be a train of thought like this could be played like an away game, because Fenerbahce have got to come out and go after Rangers. So perhaps why not set up similarly with that back three, back five in place and look to hit them on the counter like they did in Istanbul. So the difference is because you're at home and there's a greater expectation from the home support, and that does change the dynamic of it. But it's going to be very interesting to see what the manager decides to do and how that actually plays out in reality.
Yeah, and to see how some of those players, by the way, react to playing in front of the home fans, because I know they've been good in Europe at home, but of late, it's been a disaster at Ibrox. And still the headlines every day, Al, and it's going to be like this until they make a decision, Rangers and the next manager. But Steven Gerrard, still the favourite. Rafa Benitez has been mentioned. Ali McCoist has been saying Frank Lampard. Got very close to getting the job last time. So having missed out, you wonder, would he go again? Doing great things at Coventry right now, by the way. And again, many questioned that appointment. Out of those three, just out of interest, who are you going for? Who are you going for, Al? Come on.
Well, if you're just pressing me just to pick one.
Yeah. He's pressing you to pick all three.
I'll take all three in his backroom staff.
Because you think there's a lot of desire there as a relatively young, I say young, he's had a lot of experience.
Well, look, I think
he wanted the job last time.
Yeah, and I think he'd done well at times at Derby, and then Chelsea, he's done well. Some things didn't quite go his way, but I think what he's done at Coventry, he's went in there and done really, really well. So why not?
Slightly surprised. Michael, you seem very surprised he's gone with Lampard there out of those three.
Oh, you just asked me to pick one.
No, listen.
Benitez thing, I don't think will happen.
We can have these conversations.
There'll be too much money.
Yep, yeah, there's more money coming into the football club. You never know. But Michael, you looked shocked when he said Lampard's a quick one on that.
Well, I mean, look, I know he's obviously doing well at Coventry, but he's not got a particularly great track record. Other than
Derby,
he obviously did pretty well at Derby originally, but there's been a few sort of noticeable big clubs that have not. It's not happened. Look, every managerial appointment runs its risk, and for Rangers, one thing is for certain, that this takeover happens. Their next appointment is massive.
Huge.
It's massive because not only is that manager coming in and they have to show that they're going to close that gap on Celtic. To do that, there are so many things that need to happen. The recruitment needs to be infinitely better. The actual game plan and tactics and there's such a big job on the hands of whoever it is that comes in. And if
it's a massive gap to close quickly, and that's the other thing.
Yes, and if Gerrard comes in, I would be very interested to see, does he bring Michael Beale back with him?
Well, they just work together.
So, I know.
I don't think he would. I don't think he would.
But, but I would have said no up until he took him back out to Saudi just before he got the bullet.
I think it shows you he can be pragmatic. It doesn't matter what happened before and came before. If he thinks he can help him,
pragmatic. But what would the Rangers supporters think?
Listen, who knows? But Alan, would they care as long as it's a success? Does it matter?
Oh, possibly. I mean, it's a difficult one.
It didn't work for Michael Beale, but you could tell he loved the club, Alan.
Aye, but it's different being a manager to then coming back to that club and just going back into being a number two. I mean, is that something that he would want, that he would feel that he'd want to do? I'm not so sure, but 100% for me, I think when Gerrard and Beale were together, as proven, it worked. So, I mean, I don't know. It's an interesting one, but I think Michael's spot on with what he's saying. I think it's such a big appointment that they have to get right. And there's so much that goes along with it. Because, yes, there might be investment money-wise, but who's spending it? And what you spending it on? I mean, that has to be... We speak about the rinse and repeat and everything that's went on for years and years. The spending the money and it's been poor, and then selling the players for less money and all this. We've gone on about it all. There's so much that has to go right.
And by the way, the rinse and repeat can still happen, but just with more money being, spent. So
exactly.
It's a huge call, and one thing's for certain: there's going to be a lot going on at that club over the close season. And Barry Ferguson, I know he's obviously not sort of spoken about as being in the hunt here, but if he has a very good season end, then he's going to be in the discussion surely for whether it's the actual managerial role or something within the club.
Well, that's what Songcaster's saying, and that's what I was saying last weekend. Look, Barry, I'm sure he loves the club. If he's offered a coaching role with somebody like a Frank Lampard or Steven Gerrard or Rafa Benitez, you would imagine he would want to take it. But I think that the point just been made there by Songcaster is, if he has a really good end to the season, would he be in the running? He would have to do something really, just briefly, Al, because we're getting to that time again. He'd have to do something extraordinary, wouldn't he, in the Europa League?
So. I think, I mean, I think something extraordinary, getting really far in it. Big game coming up at the weekend as well. When you think about it, can he go there and get a result? I think those things would all have to fall his way, and then he'd possibly be in the running. But again, that would be a huge risk as well, I think.
Yeah, no doubt. Forward. And Celtic will be fired up this weekend because of what happened in the last game at Ibrox. So maybe there's a bit of the Hibs Celtic thing going on here as well. They'll want to make a big mark in the game. Look, we could talk about that. We will next week, I'm sure. We'll have an extra guest on as well, by the way, with us. But it's the Dundee Derby. It's on Premier Sports, Michael. I know Alan mentioned it briefly earlier. What a game to look forward to you've got next weekend.
Huge. I mean, huge. It's... we've already done the cup game between... Dundee and United as well, and you see the passion. It's all the derbies are special games, and obviously Dundee Derby is one of the main sort of fixtures in the Scottish football calendar. And the fact that for both teams you're coming towards the latter stages of the season is probably going to be the last one of the season, because it looks like it's a tough one for Dundee to get up into the top six. So this last one of the season, Dundee fighting for their lives and needing to turn around this run of form that they're on. And for Dundee United, they're looking at the potential of finishing third in the table and European football that comes with that. It's a monumental game. It's
one of the biggest. I used to love the Dundee Derby, working at them, by the way. One of the biggest I can remember, but you think of the Doon Derby, the 6-2s, all the New Year's game. Some brilliant games there were down the years, and this one, there's a lot riding on it. Look forward to watching that next weekend. Al, we had 3 games to get through. We've almost hit 55 minutes. You just never know, do you, on the social club?
Yeah.
Oh, we've got hold on before I sign off. There's a keep Celtic and Rangers playing away from VAR.
Do you know what that is, Daryl?
Yeah.
Donation.
Yeah.
Do you know what donation is?
No.
So here's another one, another language for you. That's Gaelic for Edinburgh.
Brilliant. brilliant. Oh, he's going to be smug for days. Anyway, I think the point there was make sure you keep Celtic, Rangers, Celtic, Old Firm, whatever you want to call it, players away from VAR. You couldn't have one of them in VAR. There is no doubt about that. Anyway, right, listen, well out of time. Alan, Michael, thank you very much. We will see you next Monday on the Social Club. Mikey, he'll have those specs on. Go on, Mikey. Go on.
Auf Wiedersehen. Cheers.
Auf Wiedersehen. Oh, my word. Someone's dubbed him, by the way. That's why he's wearing those specs. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.
The Scottish Football Social Club is brought to you by McBookie.com. Take a lookie at McBookie today.